Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us for the second webinar in the Crisscross Virtual Challenge webinar series. Human Kinetics is happy to be one of the sponsors of this innovative and exciting virtual challenge, and I know you will enjoy today's webinar. Let's get it started. I'm going to turn it over to Jan Seeley, co-director of the Christie Clinic Illinois Marathon Race Weekend and creator of the Crisscross Virtual Challenge. Jan?
Hey, thank you, Sue, and thank you to Human Kinetics for being a sponsor and making these webinars possible. This is the second in our Crisscross webinar series. We had our first webinar back in December. Those of you who were watching it live or watched it afterwards, it was a fun hour where we talked with two local historians. Our topic was the Prairie State Fun Facts and Figures. Today, it's now January 12th, and so our topic today is don't let January break your stride. Keep stepping safely this winter. We have got two great guests, Mike Lindemann, who is the other director of the Christie Clinic Illinois Marathon with me, and the Crisscross and our Mile at the Pines, and Lori Ozment, who's also a local Champaign friend of ours who is going to also be one of our guests. Before I introduce them, I want to just do a little bit of housekeeping while I have everybody's attention. We are now about 11 weeks into the Crisscross, and it's been a really fun adventure for all of us. I know Mike, Lori, and we are all doing the Crisscross. Lori and I are doing the double. Mike's doing the north to south route. Lori and I have both finished our west to east, and now Mike, Lori, and I are all working our way down the north side of the north route of the route here, which is wonderful. About a week ago, we sent out the completed west to east guidebook. So I hope those of you who are on either doing the double or the solo west to east crossing have enjoyed reading about all the towns along the west to east route. We're working very, very hard to get the balance of the north to south guide done. We did put out half of that before Thanksgiving, and we're probably a week or so away from completing that. And I don't know about you guys, but I have been making a list of all the cool places that I want to go to when we can move about the country again, because there are just some real amazing towns and places to visit in our state here. The swag, the Crisscross swag, everybody who has registered by the 29th of December, you will be among the people who get their swag in the first distribution, which is going to start happening pretty soon. You know, we've got 5 different things. We've got the hat, we've got the shirt, depending on which route you're on. We've got the cool face mask with the local Christie Clinic Illinois Marathon Champaign icons on it. We've got the coin, and we've got product from Noon. And as you can imagine, that's 5 different things coming from 5 different directions, and they're all winging their way to us here in Champaign-Urbana. And as soon as we have them all, which we anticipate soon, we will begin that distribution process. Of course, everybody answered a question when you registered about whether you could pick up your swag down at Mike's store at Body and Soul, and we know who you are. And when your swag is ready, we will send you an email so you can pick it up. And then the rest of you, we will be shipping your swag. So hang in there with us. It should be just a little bit longer. For those of you who have registered for the Crisscross since the 29th of December, the next distribution will be in early March. So just hang in there and we'll get everybody their stuff. Of course, it's not too late to register. There's still plenty of time to complete the Crisscross. It goes until May 1st. And if anything, the teams have learned when you have a team of 4 or 5 people, you mow through the miles. We've got teams that have already finished both routes, and they're saying, Jan, what do I do now? And I say, well, delete all your entries and start over. So there's still plenty of time. If you've got friends, family, colleagues who want to do the Crisscross, you just let them know that that's possible. They can click right to our registration page from the Illinois Marathon page. So I think that, Mike, can you think of any other housekeeping things for the Crisscross? Did I cover everything?
I think you're good.
Yeah, I think you guys are going to love the swag. We've seen the hats, the shirts, the coins. We haven't seen the masks yet, but we know they're coming soon. So we're really excited, and we can't wait to get our swag as well. So let's get started. Let me introduce our 2 guests. We're going to have kind of a fun, I guess it's early afternoon now. Lori Ozment. Well, last time I had 2 guys with beards, and I had to say the guy with the beard. I'm like, no, the other guy with the beard. But this is easy because I have a gal and I have a guy. So Lori, welcome. Lori grew up in Metamora, Illinois. She's had 3 careers. She initially was an RN, having graduated from Mennonite Hospital School of Nursing in Bloomington. For 20 years, she was a nurse. She changed careers after that and got an MSW. at the University of Illinois and worked in the counseling center there for a few years. And now she's on her third career for the last 20 years. And including right now, Lori works in the fitness industry as a certified group exercise instructor, a personal trainer, and a yoga teacher, which I realize is kind of hard to say, yoga teacher. You want to say yoga teacher. Like my mom, who's from Boston, would say, you're a yoga teacher. And so when I was saying that, I'm like, I was regressing into my Boston accent. So Lori, her latest feather in her cap is as a yoga instructor. Lori's been running for many years, lots of races, and I didn't know this about you, that you ran your first marathon in our inaugural year in 2009. And now since then, you have run so many marathons, 5K, all the way up to the 50K trail and road. Lori has been trying to qualify for the Boston Marathon for years. She finally did it at our 2019 race. And of course, as everybody knows, the Boston Marathon was yet another race that went down the tubes last year because of the pandemic. Lori, I hope that you do get back to Boston when it's safe to do so. Lori and her husband, Mike, spend half of the year in Champaign-Urbana and the rest of the time in Naples, Florida. I will not rat you out as to where you are, but I think I know.
I wore a long sleeve shirt to try to fake everyone out.
And of course, our other guest is none other than Mike Lindemann. Everybody knows Mike. Mike is a Mattoon native who has lived in Champaign for over 40 years. And Mike is the owner of the fabulous specialty running store here in Champaign-Urbana. We're so lucky to have it, Body and Soul Sports. Mike, are you guys in your 42nd year?
We are.
Yeah.
We in July.
It's amazing because you're only about 45, so you got off to a young start in your store. Mike has been running for almost his entire life. He ran cross country and track at Arkansas State. He's run many marathons, and his PR far exceeds any of the other hosts or guests on this call today. I think you've run like a 2:39, Mike, I want to say?
Just under 240, yeah.
That's amazing. Wow. How old were you when you did that?
I don't know. I was 29, maybe 28.
Wow, that's awesome. Mike does live here. Mike does live here in Champaign with his wife, Liz. He has 3 daughters, Laura, Allie, and Rachel. And as I said earlier, Mike is the co-director with me of all of the races that we put on here in Champaign-Urbana, Christie Clinic, Illinois Marathon, Mile at the Pines, and now our virtual crisscross. So let's get right to it. We're going to start with Lori. We're going to talk about motivation, ideas, strategies for how to, get out. And it is, I know it's like 35 degrees and sunny here in Champaign today, but eventually it'll get a lot colder. And then Mike is going to do a great kind of show and tell and let us know if we are going to step outside. I mean, there's definitely better choices you can make in turn to keep yourself, warm and safe. But Lori, you've been a fitness instructor for, now 20 plus years. So you must have some insight about what motivates people to be outside, running and walking. Let's start there with the motivation.
Yeah, so, I think motivation is sort of an interesting thing because obviously everyone has already been motivated enough to join the crisscross, which for many is the hard part just to begin with. Mm-hmm. So the motivation was there to join, whatever, if you were shamed into it by a buddy or if you had great aspirations, whatever, you got the motivation part down. And I think the next step to that is really not about motivation anymore. So a lot of people think I have to wait until I'm motivated to get myself out the door, when in fact, you have to get yourself out the door. So it's really much more about creating a habit rather than some sort of mental gymnastics to keep interested in making that leap. And so, most of my advice, if you will, or discussion with clients of mine that struggle with motivation, for lack of a better term, is really more about building a habit. Mm-hmm. And that is what will lead more often to success.
Great, that's a good connection. So let's talk about sounds like we can lay kind of a foundation, if you will, that build the frame, the bones, and then that will help us. So what are some of those habit producing steps that we can all take?
Right, so I think you can, first of all, you can kind of look back at your own past. If you're struggling now, and I think it's easy to struggle when the weather is cold or, you know, it's not particularly nice outside. I think you can look back at your own success in the past and say, what got me out the door before? And is that a habit that I've lost track of? Is that one that I can regain? And so many of us have done things that have worked in the past. Often that is maybe piggybacking getting out the door onto something else that we routinely do already. So for me, my dog is photobombing the picture right now in the lower corner. But for me, I consistently get out and do a morning dog walk, 5 o'clock or so. And that's something I can piggyback my run with. So I can do my dog walk and have that count as my warm up, and then immediately know my run happens after that. And I think that's an easy way, just one example of piggybacking your desired activity onto something that's already routine for you.
Do we want to show JoJo? Because otherwise he's going to keep wanting to pop in.
Hey, buddy. Can you say hi? Can you speak? There he is. He has such a black face. You really can't. You can see his tongue.
Wow, that's awesome. Okay, so that's there we go. So now we'll go back up. I think you got to turn. There you go. Now we've got you back in screen. Okay, I know there's been a lot of people I think everybody I know has a new dog. I mean, there's been a lot of dog acquisitions in COVID.
Something that's happened with COVID, right? And I think if you look at even COVID itself, I think a lot of people think, oh my gosh, the chaos of COVID, right? But I think that there can be a silver lining there. I think with COVID, for a lot of people, it's allowed some flexibility in schedules that wasn't there before. So for many of us, we're successful with creating our habit if it's the first thing we do in the morning. You know, don't really have time to rationalize over the course of the day why we really don't quite need to do that run. And so with COVID, a lot of people are now working from home. Their schedule isn't, oh my gosh, I have to be at the office at 9 o'clock in the morning. So it might, in fact, even be easier to add this new habit during this sort of chaotic time, which I think is kind of cool.
Yeah, I found that to be the case. I mean, the time that I would be spending driving around in meetings, instead of doing all my meetings from my dining room table, pretty much, I can roll into a second walk or a run or something like that. So yeah, I think look for silver linings in the hand we've been dealt right now with COVID. And I think the critical thing is to, you know, when we're past this, not to regress. And that's where that foundation and those habits are so important.
Right.
So what are some other, you know, things that we can do along that habit making route?
So, you know, I think there's some real concrete things. So I think we should each think of ourselves as sort of the logistics guy or woman, you know, for our running. So what are the logistics that will get rid of the most difficulty for you to complete your whatever, run, walk, exercise? It may be all in the planning. So the night before, you know, typical things, laying out your running gear, having your cup of coffee ready to brew if you're a coffee drinker prior to or caffeine prior to exercise. You know, the alarm clock, make sure it's set, make sure you're getting in bed early enough. So you're just setting everything up so that there's the least difficulty that you can have. One of the things that I used to do, and this is kind of funny, one of the things I used to do routinely was look at my weather app. And it was mainly so that I would know how to dress. And Mike will speak to this later and have some really good ideas for us. But I found myself in looking at that weather app thinking, oh my gosh, now down here in Florida, it's like, oh my gosh, it's going to be 80 degrees and 100% humidity at 6 in the morning. I really don't want to do this run. And instead, I was like, okay, I got to quit doing that. I got to quit, sort of getting down about things I don't have control over. So I kind of took that out. And now I get up in the morning, I look at my app to know what to wear and go for it. But that whole idea of, really, I just don't want to do that. It just kind of goes away if you don't have that information.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. We talked about this yesterday, you and I did, about setting your intention the day before. So, like I remember something at running camp was where you dial it in, you're going to get up. And I bumped into Mike on Saturday. We were both running out on the kick crew run. Like, we knew when we went to bed on Friday night that we were going to be running that next morning. And instead of like waking up and saying, well, what should I do today for exercise?
Absolutely.
That's part of that planning.
Right.
And
you take any decision making out of it.
Right.
It becomes almost unconscious. This is just what I do. This isn't a decision I make every morning or every afternoon or whenever it is you run. It's just something I do.
Yeah, and I think you have to I mean, I'm not a good example because I've been running for 46 years, but it's as important as any other thing I do in the day. And so I will work around other things to make sure that I get to do that. And when Mike and I bumped into each other on Saturday, this brings up another habit and thing that helps people get out. He was running with his buddies, I was running with one friend, and that's the idea of having a buddy, somebody who you're not going to leave stranded on the corner, basically.
Absolutely.
Whether you're driving or walking to meet them, you're much more inclined to do what you need to do to make that date. And that is just one of the best ideas anybody could have if you're not doing it.
I think that hits 2 points, 2 really good points. The buddy keeps you accountable, which is huge. But the buddy, for a lot of us, is also an immediate reward. So the other thing that's really helpful with building strong habits is having immediate satisfaction or immediate reward. So for you or for Mike, it might be, oh my gosh, I get to meet so-and-so at 8 o'clock, fabulous. And so I'm motivated to go do that, right? For some people, the motivation might be, if you're running alone, it might be the music that you listen to. For me, I've really gotten into podcasts, and so I will only let myself listen to podcasts when I run. So can't listen to it any other time, can only listen to it then. And so it's an immediate reward, sometimes it's what you have on. I can only wear this special running outfit when I'm doing more than 5 miles. Wow, okay, but again, that kind of goes back to Mike. We'll get there.
Yeah.
But I think any of those things that just sort of make it pleasurable and have that be immediate. I think it's really sort of setting yourself up to fail if your reward is something way down the road. And Janet talked about this a little bit yesterday. I think some people would say, oh, I'm going to use my swag for the event as my reward. Well, if you're doing the crisscross and you're doing both directions, that might be a while.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? You might be better off saying, my reward for today's run is to wear my new hat or my half zip or, whatever it is. But don't wait until it's a finished product to say, okay, I get to enjoy my swag.
Right. Yeah, we all need those short-term goals. And, and that can be, I mean, I hate to be kind of carrot and stickish about it, but you get to have a donut when you're done. I mean, but I've seen so many social media posts about people destinating to the industrial donut, thing out on Windsor Road here. And, whatever it takes. I have a friend who I run with every Monday, and she always goes to her special coffee place afterwards. She only does that on Mondays. And so, and especially where I think for me and others as well, where we don't see our friends as much, these runs with 1 person or 2 person physically distanced have become even more important to our well-being and our happiness and enjoyment. And so, those things, have really helped. But let's yeah, I know you're in Florida, you outed yourself. I didn't have to do it. But you know, it is cold where many of us live. And we do have runners from over 30 states now, which is fabulous. Three countries other than the US. And you know, I was thinking about if you're going to have to go out and run in the cold, does warming up inside, is that a good idea before you go out, so you're not like going out with a cold body? Is that a good idea?
Absolutely. So, you know, anytime you're going to do some strenuous activity in cold weather, you're much better off if your body is warmed up. And so I always encourage everyone to, whatever sort of active warm up that you're doing, it might be active stretches, you know, it might be a little whatever, jumping jack routine, whatever it is to wake your muscles up a little bit. I think it's pretty dangerous to just step out the door and then go Mike's pace. Right? I mean, so you don't want to step off the front stoop and be at a 6-minute mile.
Yeah.
Not very wise. Yeah.
Yeah. Are there any, try to imagine yourself, which I know most of your life you spent in the winter in the cold. So are there surfaces that you like, is there like some no deal breaker conditions that you'll say, you know what, I'm going to stay inside? And what would you do inside if that were the case?
Yeah, you know, I think again, that sort of, when I was running in the cold, it took a lot for me to not run outside because I'm not a huge fan of indoor, you know, treadmill, elliptical, bike, whatever. I just always enjoy being outside more. And so really the thing that kept me indoors was ice. And you know, I know there's yak tracks. I know there's lots of things you can do to help with those surfaces. But that was really the big one for me, is, you know, it was just too easy to slip and fall. And so, you know, then to go inside, I think there are options, certainly, you know, if you, back in the days when we had gym access and, you know, probably easy to have the plan to go get on the treadmill or the elliptical or the bike at the gym. Or if you're lucky enough to have one in your house, better yet. I think the important thing is you have to have a plan. So, you know, if you're in Illinois and it's the winter, you better have a backup plan. And that backup plan, again, COVID has kind of given us some help here, might be to do a Zoom HIIT class, right? Instead of being on a piece of equipment. There's so much out there now because of COVID. It really makes it pretty easy to just jump on, as we are here, do a class with people.
Right. That's a great suggestion. I think, yeah, you know, we layer in the COVID piece here, and it's taken away, you know, a whole space where people can exercise. So it does require, you know, a little bit more just creativity on our part. You know, I think getting back to the, you know, what gets you out, I mean, I see a lot of people posting their workouts on social media. I mean, again, if that's something that helps you get out the door, you know, do it. That's part of that habit. You know, I make my plan, I lay out my clothes, I have my coffee ready, I do my run, and then I put something up on social media. What? Hey, who's this person? Dick Beardsley.
Hey,
speaking
of
crazy runners, where are you coming from?
I got in off the lake, you know, here. I was out there with some folks ice fishing here in northern Minnesota, so I still got my bomber cap on here, but I'll take her off now.
Hey, Beards, good to see you. You know, how'd you hear we were having a webinar today?
Well, you know, little birdie sitting on my shoulder said I ought to check it out, so here I am.
Well, you know what? We were just talking about, you know, sometimes you can't get out to run. What's the craziest workout, quote, workout that you did? And just folks who don't know Dick Beardsley. Dick Beardsley is a beloved person in Champaign-Urbana. He lives in Minnesota. World champion marathoner, has been our guest several times, and now he and his wife Jill run a bed and breakfast up in Bemidji, Minnesota. But what's the craziest workout you've ever done in the winter that wasn't running? I know you must have a story.
Well, I can already see people shaking their heads because this is a true story. So back in let's see, after Boston in 1982, the next within a few months, I had major left Achilles tendon problems, ended up having to have 2 major surgeries where they had to reconstruct it. So obviously I couldn't run or anything like that. So, you know, back then, we're talking the early 1980s, you know, we didn't have a lot of indoor type of equipment and stuff. I had an old stationary bike. You know, after watching so many reruns of Leave It to Beaver and listening to Willie Nelson on tape day in and day out, I thought, what else can I do besides sit on this stationary bike? Well, I lived on the farm at the time in Minnesota here, and it was during the winter. And here in Minnesota, we always get lots of snow. So I thought, well, gosh, I'm going to try this. So I went out behind one of our barns with my snow shovel. And I thought, gosh, you know, I know just shoveling snow regularly, it seems like my heart rate gets up there pretty good. So I came up with a snow shoveling program that emulated what I would normally do on a weekly run. So to give you an example, so on a weekly run on Sunday mornings, I always did a 22 to 24 mile long run. Well, I couldn't run, so I got out there with my snow shovel and I snow shoveled nonstop for 2 to 2.5 hours, about what it would take me for a 22 to 24 mile run. So, and then on Mondays running, I would normally do a kind of a couple of easy recovery runs. So I'd get out there and I'd do about a 45-minute nice easy shovel, you know, back and forth. And I'd get into one pile and I'd put it back in another pile. Then on Tuesdays was always some kind of a speed session. So maybe I would do like a 10 or 15-minute easy snow shovel warm up. And then I do like 10 times 2 minutes as fast as I could with a 1-minute recovery shovel in between. So Wednesdays would be a medium long run. And so on Wednesday would be a medium long shovel. So about an hour to an hour and a half, just kind of nice and steady. Thursday would be like Tuesday. Friday would be kind of a recovery day again. I'd be out shoveling just easy for maybe 45 minutes to an hour. And then Saturday, it was a 10K shovel race. So I'd get out there because I would normally run a race on the weekend. I'd get out there, I'd do a nice easy warm up like I would before I would run. And then honest to goodness, I would shovel as fast as I could for 30 minutes, back and forth, changing arms, changing directions. And when I got done, honest to gosh, it had felt like I had just run a really hard race. And I'll tell you, I did that all winter long. And by springtime, my Achilles was feeling good. I don't think I lost virtually any shape at all. Yes, it took me a few days to get my legs kind of back going again. And I had an upper body like Popeye the Sailor Man. It was awesome. So
Jared, that's a great story. Well, hey, listen, will you come back in 2 weeks and be our guest on January 26th, and we can just tell Beardsley stories for 40 minutes?
Yeah, Jen, I'd love to. That'll be great. I'll look forward to it.
Okay, we're going to get to Mike's show in town now. Beards, thank you so much for popping in. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Okay, see you guys. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. Great. Well, Mike, you know, Joe Seeley used to say there's no bad no bad weather for running, just not the right clothes. So tell us what we need to know so that we can exercise outside in the winter months and feel like we're going to be protected. I know you got a nice show for us.
Well, Lori, one of my things that I do for motivation is before I even go to bed at night, I wear, if it's warm or if it's cold, I wear either a long sleeve shirt. So I'm up and I've already got that shirt on ready to go. So that's kind of my motivation to get going, because in my world, my dogs are now sleeping in because it's dark. So it's hard to get I run now and then I walk the dogs. So, which is, they sleep a lot. But anyway, so if you're out running or walking, the first thing you need to do before you go out the door is take a look at the temperature and assume that if you're walking, assume it's 5 degrees warmer. If you're running, assume it's 10 degrees warmer before you even step out the door. Then check your wind. The one best thing you can ever do when you're out running or walking is go into the wind first. Always head the direction whichever the way the wind's blowing. In Illinois, you know, it can be really bad. So just think how nice that, I mean, you may say, oh, you may be cussing yourself on your first 3 miles out, but just think of the 3 miles back, you'll be shedding your gloves and all that. So that's really important to remember that. So it's always a good thing. The other thing that you want to do before you go out the door is obviously know the temperature, so you know what you're going to wear and everything. You know what the wind is going to do. You know what direction you're going to head out first. Most of your body temperature is gone between your extremities. So your hands, your head, 90% of your heat is actually gone through that. So you definitely want to make sure you have that covered up. The other thing that we always talk about here at the store is cotton is pretty much rotten. You don't want to do cotton. Cotton can absorb some moisture, which is kind of nice, but it also sits there. So it sits, so you get a much colder if you're running in cotton and you're starting to sweat and things like that. So we always recommend polyester first. So to start with, it's all about layering. You want to, like I say, I wear, when I go to bed, it's kind of weird, but I do my layering at night. So I've got a long sleeve shirt. If the temperatures are extremely cold, and I don't do that at night, but if it's extremely cold, I usually use a piece that's a much tighter fit, so it's next to my body a little bit more, but again, it's polyester, and then I layer that with a loose fitting like long sleeve shirt or something like that to absorb the moisture that's coming out. And then over that, I'll wear, depending if it's windy, I'll wear something like a nylon, some sort of windbreaker that actually breaks the wind. If it's not, I'll use like a quarter zip, something like that that's still going to layer and keep me warm, but it's not going to go through it because it's not windy. So if it's windy, you want to get something more, that's going to be more windproof, wind resistant. There are products out there that are waterproof. You always want to be careful about things when you're buying waterproof things, because a lot of times like Gore-Tex materials are great when you're up in Minnesota where Dick is, or here. I mean, Gore-Tex keeps you very, very warm, but the problem is it gets too warm sometimes. If you have a Gore-Tex piece and you're a runner and you're running, say it's 45, 50 degrees and it's pouring down rain, you got a Gore-Tex suit on, I guarantee you're going to be as wet inside of that suit as you are outside, because you're on the inside. So you always want to be careful about things like that. It starts with your extremities. If you're a person, all the gloves, again, same thing with gloves. Gloves, you're not going to be able to see a lot of this, but gloves, there's regular gloves, but they're all made of a polyester material. Like this is one made by Mizuno that actually, as you wear it, it actually heats up. It gets warmer as you start to sweat.
Interesting.
Material that's they have in there that's warms up as you go, and they make it in socks and make it in hats and everything else. The other thing is usually you want, again, if you get really cold, go to a mitten. So a mitten, your fingers are together, then they'll stay much warmer. And walkers feel like they have more warmth with a mitten than they do, because your hands warm up as you run, but the walkers sometimes don't get that warmth. So the mitten will actually, with your fingers together, will always keep you a lot warmer. If it's really cold, just take the thumb out and put it in with the mitten too. So it's always loose and stuff. So that works well. Again, the extremities, I always use a polyester type of cap that basically it gets soaking wet. I mean, my head sweats a lot, but it gets soaking wet as I'm running, but it dries. It's dry in an hour, so it works really well. It's not something you have to throw in the washing machine. Whereas cotton, if it gets wet, it's going to be there all day long. Then if it gets really cold and you're concerned about your breathing in air and things like that, you always go to
The bank robber.
So it's called a balaclava. So it's a hat. You can take this. It's a breathable. Again, it's a breathable material. So you can put it up over your nose. You can just have your eyes. You can wear sunglasses. By the way, Lori, today is the first day since December 26th that the sun's been out in Champaign, Illinois. So
I'm
that's
not even
motivation. But anyway, this will keep it warm all the way down to your neck. It'll take to cover the back of your neck. So if you have if you're really cold, a lot of times wear this, but like you say, don't wear it into a bank because it's probably not a good idea.
I know. Boy, with the mask wearing now, everything's really changed. We all have masks on. That's a great heart. Yeah.
And socks are real important too. I mean, it's a lot of personal preference, because some people, they warm up really quick. Jen, she'll wear shorts when it's 15 degrees out sometimes.
No, 30's my cutoff, but okay.
So and socks are important. You can get, you can get socks that have merino wool in it that you can run in, really warm. Right sock makes what they call a double layer sock, which is as thick or as thin as a regular pair of socks, but it's 2 layers. When you have 2 layers, moisture is going from inside layer to outside layer. So again, against your skin, it's staying dry. So you're staying a lot warm. Those are options that you can get too. So, but again, when you're layering, usually, like if it's, and my motivation, when the colder it gets, the worse the weather is, the more motivation I get to go out and run, because I've got to conquer that weather thing. The ice, like Lori says, the ice is the only thing I really kind of have a hesitance about, and we always use sheet metal screws here and screw them into an old pair of shoes and their traction that way. But when it's really cold, you use a layer. Like I'll use a tighter fitting top, a compression top that's more fitted on that. So I'll wear that as my skin layer next to my body, and then I'll go to a polyester loose fitting long sleeve shirt. Which long sleeve shirt, this, I mean, if you wore this by itself, it's probably, depending, you can wear this. If it's over freezing, I'll wear this first and then wear a layer over the top of it. If it's 20, 15, 20, I'll wear these 2 and then I'll wear a layer over the top. So usually a lot of times with the tops will be like I use, something like a quarter zip, like this, which again is the same material, but if it's real windy, this is where I'll go to this. It's kind of windproof, water resistant type thing, but it blocks the wind. It keeps, and when you wear something like this, always keep in mind it's going to keep the body heat in even more so. So a lot of times if I wear this, I want to go down to 2 layers, 1 layer underneath, and then this piece. When you first walk outside the door, you're going to say, oh, this guy's nuts. You didn't know what he's talking about. You're going to feel chilled. But within a minute of when you start running and exercise, you're warm. You're going to be fine. So.
Right. Well, with those layers, you can, as you're going in and out of the wind, you can unzip, wrap around the waist, and put it back on, as you warm up. That's, you can't take off something you don't have on.
Exactly.
Right.
You can take it off and things like, I mean, that's, a lot of times when it's real windy, when I'm running into the wind, I'm usually don't have my gloves on when I'm coming back. Hands have gotten warm, things like that. Or my balaclava, if it's really cold, it goes from being up around my nose all the way down to the bottom of my neck. So
right.
It's funny. I've always thought that if you started off running and you were comfortable when you started, you should really be a little bit chilly when you start, or you're going to be hot really soon in cold weather. Do you feel that way?
That's exactly right. Yeah, you will. I mean, you definitely. I mean, it doesn't. And honestly, particularly when you get back to, if you do a little bit of warm up before you go out the door. I mean, because a lot of people, I mean, honestly, a lot of people time-wise, they walk out the door. And then and they may start out running slow and then pick it up, but that's when you feel cold. So if you're doing just, like you say, a little bit of exercises, 10 jumping jack, I don't like to stretch before I run. I always stretch after, but 10 jumping jacks, I have 8 stairs that I can go up and down 2 or 3 times, and that kind of body going and just that little bit of heat. So when you first step out, you don't feel like you're diving into the cold right away. You're somewhat warmed up, and then, like I say, within 30 seconds to a minute, you start thinking about, oh, did I dress too much?
Yeah.
And couple follow-up points. When your body is overheated like that, then the energy in your body is not going to propel your run. It's going to try to cool you off. And so you always want that energy cycle to be, helping you move and not something else. It also raises 2 other things about hydration. We think we don't need to hydrate in the winter. We do. So don't, I know we're doing a noon hydration challenge this month. Or whatever you use, but don't skimp on that, because your body still needs that. And I know Mike just said we haven't had sun for over 2 weeks, but the sun in the winter is still bright. So don't forget your sunscreen and take those same precautions that you would, if you were running in the more, sunnier weather. So
and the sunglasses to protect your eyes. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, especially if there's any sort of snow on the ground, you want to make sure you have eye protection.
Yeah. Mike, of course, with his store and all of their staff, local people, where to go. But if you have any questions, you can email Mike, and he'd be happy to help you if you're looking for something. Mike, if you had to make like one, like if you could only make one purchase for the winter, what would it be?
Oh gosh. Well,
Sorry to put you on the spot.
if you're only
A
What's the
plane
most important thing?
Florida.
if
A
you only
plane
make
ticket.
a purchase and you're athletic, it's got to be shoes. But I mean, your
Yeah,
shoes are
right. Yeah.
important thing, but as far as running in the winter, I mean, you know, I try to avoid, like pant wise, you either wear tights or I wear what they call a gymnastic pant. You don't want something that's real baggy and loose, because that just, it's not fun to run in that and stuff. And
Right.
but from a clothing standpoint, that's a good question. Probably the one thing for me would be a hat. I mean,
A
that's
hat.
me, because you want to keep as much of that body heat in and stuff, and
Right.
you have at least some other clothes, but I do try to suggest staying away from cotton as much as possible, because that you will get more cold wearing cotton running in than any other product that's out there.
Right. Great. Sue, did you have a question?
I have a question.
Oh, Lori, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, did you need to say something, Sue?
No, I was gonna chime in later. I don't have a question.
Okay. Go ahead, Lori.
I was gonna say, you know, do either of you keep lists of what you wear for specific temperatures? You know, like this is my go-to list for 30 degrees. Because I'm thinking that's another obstacle to remove
Mm-hmm.
to prevent you from, you know, getting outside.
I don't, because I have the luxury of owning a specialty running store. Robe is pretty high end and a lot, so I switch a lot all the time. So
Yeah. Well, you know, when we have our training program, and by the way, Mike and I, we will be putting out an announcement soon about the status of our 2021 race. We had to wait to meet with the university, and we have recently done that, and we're waiting just for a little bit more information. But when we have our normal 16-week training program, we're at Mike's store. And so, gosh, you see people getting out of their cars and walking into the store to get ready for the run. They're like, I did not pick the right clothes. They're like, Mike's super good about letting people just pull things off the rack, do the run, and then, you know, pay for them later. So that was kind of a nice perk for doing the runs out of Body and Soul. So I am going to tell you about a special book deal that we have from Human Kinetics today. But Sue, did you have anything before I did that?
I just had one person said they're having a great time with the crisscross challenge, and they're about to start the east-west route, but they're wondering if
west to east.
Okay, what they said. And wondering if you guys are going to come up with any other challenges or in the future. Just stay tuned kind of thing.
Yes, we do have one. And we're, you know, depending on what the universe gives us for opportunity this year, Mike and I are going to be looking at all kinds of options, and another virtual adventure may be one of them. So you know, they can send us a note at the director at Illinois Marathon. But yeah, we're very much in the throes of this. We've got a handful of people that are done with the north-south, more on the west to east. Most of the teams, the big teams, have done and finished, and they're the ones that are starting over. But we still have the majority of our participants who are going to be out there, including me and Mike. I mean, I don't think I'll finish till April, because 30 miles a week takes a while. So, but thank you for the comment, and we love all of you, and it's been a great way to stay connected with everybody. And that was part of the motivation to do this. But I do want to tell you about a great offer from Sue and from Human Kinetics. I'm going to put up my screen real quick, because it is going to show you what. Can you guys see my screen?
Yep.
Yep. So it's called Celebrate Renew Year, and until the end of January this month, Human Kinetics is offering a great discount. So as you can see, and we'll include this information when we send the follow-up to the webinar. When you buy one product, you save 30% when you use the promo code RENEW30. If you buy two, then you can save 35% with the promo code RENEW35. Or if you buy 3 or more books, you can save 40% with the promo code RENEW40. And then we are going to highlight 2 books. Sue, Carol Merrill, please. Our first book is called Advanced Marathoning. If you want to hold that up, this is this book has but how many editions have there been now? It's just one of your classics, but.
Well, this is the 3rd edition, and it's an incredible book. The training programs in there. Yeah.
Yep, it'll help you train smarter to get to the finish line of your next marathon. Fingers crossed that maybe there will be some marathoning sometime in somewhere in the U.S. There's an 8. Oh, okay. You read it. Or is it me? Echo.
No, I'm happy to read it. If you're choosing, there's 18 and 20 week preparations or weekly distances of 55 to 85 plus miles. That if you're running just one marathon run and you want to have your personal best book for you, if you're running multiple ones, kind of back to back, this is a resource you're going to want to have.
Okay, Sue, I'm going to tell us about the second book because we're getting some weird feedback when you chat. The second book.
I'm gonna mute myself.
Okay, that's great. No insult intended. Okay, foam rolling. Okay, you don't have one of these, you can get one down at Mike's store. Sometimes they're big and long and white, and those are foam roller, but this also technically counts. This is a newer book from Human Kinetics called Complete Guide to Foam Rolling. You roll before you run, after you run, gets the blood flowing, allows your muscles to work more efficiently, and can definitely initiate the recovery process. I know, Lori, you're a big roller. Mike, do you roll out a little bit now too?
Do, yeah.
Yeah. Really, again, when we were doing our runs out of Mike's store after the run, we would be all like, hanging around. We're all, rolling on different devices, which was great. So we will, again, put the information about the discounts and the promo codes in our follow-up email. Lori, Mike, I want to thank you so much for being with us today, and Sue to Human Kinetics. That's going to be a wrap for today. Remember, in 2 weeks, we'll be back with the incredibly funny and fun and talented Dick Beardsley, marathon champion world over, was one of the best U.S. marathoners in his day and has continued to be very involved in the running industry. And until then, we'll just wish you guys all great runs and walks and keep staying safe. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Jan.
Thanks, everyone.